Hello, everyone. We welcome you to this weekend's broadcast. Alongside me, Mr. Pearson here. Maybe I'm alongside you.
Well, I'm just glad you're here in the studio, Max. It's always a pleasure to see you. Lots going on.
We have a full plate over the next hour here.
We certainly do. Lots to talk about. The markets are moving. The industry of agriculture is moving forward. And certainly things are changing in Washington, D.C., Max.
And you see those photographs out on farms. You can tell farmers are getting ready for the critical field work ahead. Many important operations to perform.
Absolutely. Lots of cleaning being done as well in those machine sheds. But Max, as we look out, we've got a new transition of power in Washington, D.C. We have the Biden administration coming in, and that could mean some changes. So I think we ought to dig into them a little bit.
Let's go right ahead.
Let's do it. Let's talk to Gene Payne. Gene is the president of the Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association. And Gene, thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Happy to be here, Max and Mike.
Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up. We've seen dicamba in the news an awful lot over the past few years. We've kind of reached a stalemate, but that could shift. What's going on?
So first of all, I think farmers and ag retailers have terrific options with dicamba that we never had before, Mike, and that is the advent of the Extend Flex trait, which means dicamba is not your only choice for post-emergent weed control. You also can add glufosinate now. So that creates a tremendous amount of options for growers. And also we have the E3 trait from Corteva, which is the 2,4-D trait on top of soybeans. So that's another great option. The first couple of years of the dicamba tolerant technologies, we didn't have a lot of options, and it led to a lot of issues with coexistence and a lot of complaints to the departments of agriculture, not just in Illinois, but other states. But now that we have the E3, the Extend Flex, and of course we still have the G7 trait out there with Liberty, I think depending on where you live and how you, as a farmer, decide to what trait to plant, how you manage this, both pre-emerge and post-emerge, it gives us so many great options that I'm really optimistic that the management of these technologies is going to be extremely successful this year.
Well, that's really good to hear, because that has certainly been a hot topic amongst, well, everybody in the industry when it comes to weed resistance moving forward. But when you look at the growing season of 2021, it might have a little higher stakes this year, mightn't it, if management isn't handled correctly?
So we just got 5-year label approval for these products, but there is a change in administration, as everyone knows. We have a new US EPA director. And even before the Trump administration exited, there were already some warning shots across the bow on FIFRA, which is the national pesticide structure for how pesticides are approved and labeled and then given permission for the states to use. So we really need to be cognizant that people are looking at, is that current regulatory structure really where we need to be? We think FIFRA works very well, and it works very well at the state level too. But when we have issues with pesticide complaints and misuse complaints and off-target complaints, people take notice, including the courts in California, as we saw last year, the state departments of agriculture, and certainly US EPA. So that's why it's so important for every farmer out there that's listening, for every ag retailer, to keep these products on target and use the right technology in the right place so you don't have conflicts with your neighbors and we can have a successful coexistence season in 2021.
Gene, I have said at times of the past that the EPA administrator, depending on the administration that he or she is in, can be just as powerful and affect agriculture in a more profound way than even the Secretary of Agriculture can. Now, we know something about this new EPA administrator. He has been a regulator already in North Carolina, correct?
That's correct. And so he has experience already, which is great. And he's not just a politician moving into that job, but someone that knows what it takes to how to administer very complex regulations.
We seem to be, though, unable to control in agriculture those court decisions that come along. I mean, we're helpless to do anything almost, aren't we? Whenever, especially if it's a critical time for field work and all of a sudden a court acts out on the West Coast.
Right. So Max, this all comes back to the relationship that we also have with environmental groups. The reason these lawsuits get filed is because the environmental groups in many cases are not happy with how we're managing pesticides. So they feel like their only option is to go to the judicial branch. So regulation by the judiciary is never a good thing. Our philosophy at IFCA has always been to work with our state environmental groups, be transparent with them, show them what we're doing to manage these technologies so that we have that opportunity to succeed. Because if they don't feel comfortable with how we're regulating ourselves, and that's where stewardship comes into place, that's how these lawsuits start, and that's how they end up impacting the whole structure that we worked so hard to create at the national level so that we have uniformity, go into 2021 knowing that a lot is at stake. We can be very successful with these new herbicide traits and seed traits, but we have to remember people are watching us, and there's a lot of people that want us to fail, which is why we need to rise to the challenge and really succeed and keep these products on target and coexist with all of our specialty growers and our non-GMO soybean growers.
Gene, I know there are producers who don't feel very comfortable with that coalition with environmental groups that have opposed them in the past, but I hear and understand your suggestion there that it's maybe better to work with some of these folks to head off the possible legal action down the road. Thanks for joining us this weekend.
You're welcome, Max and Mike. Thank you.
Gene Payne, president of the Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association.